This week on DSPL Weekly. Season 2 is here. Arizona celebrates their championship. The North Star War resumes. And 6 more games as we expand to 16 teams in the kickoff week of Season 2. Next. Hello. I am Grumm, host of DSPL Weekly and the commissioner of the Dork Pokemon League. Welcome to Season 2, and thank you for checking out this week's preview of one of the silliest Pokemon draft leagues that it's out there. We at the DSPL appreciate all forms of support, so share with your friends, leave a like, subscribe, and comment below to show those forms of support. And if you did not watch the Season 1 recap and award show, you may not have heard that this year, we have expanded to 12 teams. For draft breakdowns of each team, check out the past stream and watch me and the rest of the league go over the draft. And watch this Sunday as we watch all 8 games from this week, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Games will be uploaded throughout the week on the channel as well this season, so you can keep up with your favorite teams individually if you wish. But enough talking, let's get to previewing. We open the season with the defending Season 1 champion, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and their general manager, AW, hosting the team formerly known as the Corpus Christi Crowbats, now known as the New York Cosmic, and their rookie general manager, K. Marvel. Both teams look to start the second season of the DSPL with a win, but experience is a huge factor as AW leveraged his career of experience on his way to winning the championship last season, while K. Marvel is making his first go at Draft League. We're changing things up from last season. I'm going to be giving you my projected 6 here. And here are the champs. You can look at them right there on your screen. You got Annihilate, the number 1 pick, and who I think is obviously coming. The physical setup attacker, as New York is weak to Ghost and thus weak to Rage Fist. I think Chi-Yu comes along as well as the huge fire weakness of New York can be exploited by Chi-Yu, who can just nuke things as a special attacker. I think Araquanid comes as a physical Terra Captain this week, huge water weak spot as well. Strong Terra, water bubble boosted liquidations, also set up some sticky webs as well. I think Mamoswine comes as a bulky hit taker, stealth rocker, but can also exploit the ground weakness that NYC can have even with some of their Pokemon. I think Klefki is the 5th Pokemon that comes for Arizona as a screen support for Annihilate and Chi-Yu, or a Trick Room setter for Araquanid this week. Either way, a big support Pokemon, potential support Pokemon of the year, in fact. And I think rounding out for Arizona is Cyclizar as a hazard remover and a momentum with the speed and the U-turn and the regenerator. I just think those 6 are really, really good for them. For New York, it's a tough matchup. I think, though, they can find some ways to win, starting with Ogerpon Wellspring, who's got the water immunity that can kind of wall perhaps a choice band Araquanid from just being able to freely lay off strong liquidations, as well as just being a fast Pokemon with some momentum for Ogerpon Wellspring. I think Treads also comes, Iron Treads comes because it can exploit a ground weakness that Arizona can potentially have and remove hazards, especially that sticky web, but also spikes from Klefki and other ones. I think for New York, they bring Enamorous. They bring Enamorous in its incarnate form. It can take advantage of the fairy weakness that Arizona can be susceptible to as well. It's considered the 2nd best fairy for a reason. And I think Cobalion also comes as a dark resist. I'm not sure though. It's tough because it is a dark resist, but also weak to fire, so it can't exactly check Chi-Yu, but it is a fighting type that can take advantage of the fighting weaknesses and can even revenge Chi-Yu as long as Annihilate's not really there. As far as the 6 Pokemon, I'm really between a couple for New York. I think Mew can come with some flexible sets as a mythical with 100 base stats across the board. You can go physical, you could go special, you can go defensive, you can go just speed, disruptor, all that stuff. It's got a deep move pool for a reason. And the other potential 6 Pokemon for New York is Alolan Raichu, who's got really good speed and a good stab coverage against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I just think this matchup is going to come down to whether or not Arizona takes this matchup seriously. Coming into a championship defense season, one can go one of two ways, right? You can keep at that same championship level, or you can take it easy to start. If AW does go for the latter, then K Marvel has a chance for a week 1 upset, but I expect Arizona to come out of the gate strong and look to go wire to wire this season undefeated, and I think Arizona wins this one 4-0. Our next matchup sees another finals competing general manager take on a newcomer as Duff Guy Pat and the Cambridge Clodsires welcome Diabeto and the Sacramento Coffings into the DSPL for a week 1 matchup. Diabeto has found a warm home under the wings of AW, which could motivate Duff Guy Pat to send a message to AW in week 1, putting a mentee of his into the dirt. If Cambridge is going to finish the story, then it's going to start week 1. Look at this. This is a great team. I think Meowscarada is just a fast, physical attacker that can check the Articuno, the Tinglu, and the Melodic. It's a good bring this week. I also think Kilowattrel should come as a fast special attacker that can check Sneasler, Articuno, Melodic, Blastoise, Skarmory, a lot of Pokemon in Sacramento. Also just general good speed. I think Quaquaval as a late game sweeper potential who can snowball things really quickly against an inexperienced general manager like Diabeto is very, very important to bring this week. It's a really good Pokemon. This Pokemon, I'm surprised it was there for Cambridge in the second round. A lot of people wanted Quaquaval, and they let a finals competing general manager get it. So just really good bring this week as well, I think, especially with like Ting Lu, and it's just a little tougher against like Melodic and Skarmory and Blastoise, but in general, if it gets set up and it gets going, it'll be a very dangerous Pokemon. Clodsire, I think, also comes the reigning MVP of the league. Hazards, status pressure, unaware for setup mons, especially like Gouging Fire or Swords Dance Sneasler. Very, very dangerous stuff for Sacramento. They have to respect the Clodsire, and it was the MVP for a reason. I think Grimmsnarl also comes. It's got the screen support. It's got taunt. It can disrupt. It can hit Sneasler for neutral damage. It can hit Gouging Fire for super effective damage. All these things. It can also just be a dark type that is immune. A second one that isn't Meowscarada, because then you got to worry about the Protean from Meowscarada. And I think rounding out things is going to be Clawitzer. We saw how good of a Terra Captain it was last season. I think we repeat to see how good Clawitzer is this season. Just really, really strong special attacks. Terra Dragon can also take out Gouging Fire with one shot. Also, you don't really need to Terra Dragons. You can Terra Water, get boost to the Water Pulse even more. I think Cambridge's team, that's the 6. Meowscarada, Kilowattrel, Quaquaval, Clodsire, Grimmsnarl, and Clawitzer. For a rookie general manager, Diabeto drafted one hell of a team. Starting things off, I think Gouging Fire comes this week. Cambridge is weak to fire types. Plus, it's just got really good physical bulk, which will help with Meowscarada, Quaquaval, Grimmsnarl, some other attackers. And just a really good pick, good number 1 pick. And then the second pick for Sacramento being Sneasler. It's the fastest mon, especially after an Unburden, and can really check Quaquaval and even a Regice check as well with its strong fighting types. Its Dire Claw can even take out a Meowscarada. Really good stuff. Also can absorb those toxic spikes from Clodsire. Just, don't want to take an earthquake from the Clodsire as well. Galarian Articuno, potential Terra Captain of the year. I think Fairy is the choice here. The competitive does also take advantage of Parting Shot from Grimmsnarl. So if Diabeto thinks that Cambridge, that Duff Guy Pat is going to go for a Parting Shot, bring in Articuno, get basically 2 boosts, and now you have a +3. You have a +3 Articuno, and it can get very scary very quickly. I think Brabelgas comes for Sacramento as well. It really does a good job of walling the Clodsire and the Quaquaval. I think Hazard Remover, Hazard Setter, and also can come in on a Kilowattrel Hurricane and get a +1 boost thanks to its Wind Rider ability. So I think Bramblegas is actually a very, very good check this week. I think over Blastoise as far as Hazard removal as well. I think Ting Lu, we saw how good Ting Lu was, especially in the postseason. Rocks, it's a good wall, just bulky. Like, it's got great physical defense. It also lowers special attack, so it helps out there. It's an electric immunity that will help with Kilowattrel. And it's a good Metagross check, especially if Metagross is choice band and going for strong Psychic Fangs. And I think the last Pokemon is a Pokemon that should have been drafted last season or picked up at some point, but being Low Kicks, because that Tinted Lens and super priority for revenge killing. It has Stab Sucker Punch, it has Stab First Impression, plus the Tinted Lens. Like, It can take out a Meowscarada. Like a tinted lens first impression will do serious damage to Kilowattrel, despite the fact that it is a new resisted move thanks to tinted lens. So I think that's Sacramento 6, Gouging Fire, Sneasler, Galarian Articuno, Brambleghast, Ting-Lu, and Low Kicks. Look, if the American Duffmare is going to finish the story, then what better start to this chapter than taking on a pupil of AW's in Diabito. Last year, it took some time before people got on the Duff bus, but not this year, as I think Cambridge starts the season off just as they did last season, and they are going to win 2-1. Let's go to another new general manager in their first matchup, as Roby and the Dallas Dusclops look to start their first season off right against Brazilian Fury and the Colorado Doug Trio, hoping to build off of their late season wins from last season and start the season 1-0. Dallas drafted the cool kids. You think of all the cool kids in the Pokemon, that Dallas said, that's what I want. I want to look cool. We're going to look good. We're going to play well. We might win. We might not. We might lose, but no matter what, we're jumping you after the game is over. And Dallas did just that. Starting off with picking Greninja, who I think comes this week. It exploits a water weakness, and it's a really good speed tier. It makes Colorado be honest and go with the jolly or the timid natures for their faster attackers, because Greninja is probably coming. I think also Ceruledge comes as well for exploiting the fire and ghost weaknesses that Colorado has. Plus, weak armor can outspeed both bundle, and then and you have a check there. But also close combat versus Tyranitar, who on paper seems like the best check to Ceruledge, but close combat completely changes that. I think Landorus comes. It's a good physical defensive Pokemon, especially with the investment with a Intimidate as well. I think rocks set up the hazards with the rocks. Just a little bit of chip, break some of those potential focus sashes. Plus, it really walls Zapdos and Excadrill, who looks very scary with the Sand Rush ability and Earthquakes. So that's very good. I think another wall is Pheasantipity, who does a really good job at checking Iron Bundle, especially if you you put more investment into the special defense with the with like an Assault Vest. It does a really good job of just walling Iron Bundle and forcing it to either switch out or go for a flip turn, and you can predict that. I think Slowking, it comes in a lot of offense, right, within Ceruledge and Greninja, and they're going to need some setup a little bit. And Slowking can do that with Thunder Waves, can do that with, slow pivots with Chilly Reception. It can just be another wall. Sure, it doesn't want to take a Freeze Dry from Iron Bundle, but it can take some hits, and Regenerator ability is a great ability for a Pokemon who's designed to take some hits. And I think last is the Terra Captain, Jolteon, who can Terra into an Ice this week to live a Freeze Dry and kill a chipped Iron Bundle. Plus, Terra Ice is really good against this team. A lot of ground types. If any of the Pokemon that resist Electric don't want to take Terra Ice from a Jolteon. So I think that is a very good 6 right there. Greninja, Ceruledge, Landorus, Pheasantipity, Slowking, and Jolteon for Dallas. Now for Colorado, it's an oddly constructed team. First, you have T-Tar. I think T-Tar comes this week to set the sand for Excadrill. We talked a little bit about that. But it's a really good sand setter because it's natural, it's bulky, it can take some hits. Obviously, it doesn't want to take fighting type moves, but it also takes advantage of a rock weakness from Dallas. I just ran through the team, and there's not a lot of Pokemon that can resist a rock type. Landorus is a ground type who is a flying type as well. Those things matter, especially if T-Tar could get potentially set up with a Dragon Dance and start laying out some hits of either rock, like Loaded Dice Rock Blast, or a Stone Edge. But either way, I think T-Tar comes setting up Excadrill, whose Sand Rush outspeeds everything, right? Max speed Excadrill takes everything out, even it's just that fast. And it exploits the ground weakness that Dallas has. We just ran through the 6 Pokemon there. Landorus is the only Pokemon who doesn't care about an Earthquake, right? But Excadrill can hit a Jolteon for super effective damage. Pheasantipity for super effective damage. Greninja's not exactly, strong. It's kind of frail. Ceruledge doesn't want to take that. All things that are exploitable, and I think Excadrill will help set that up. I think Iron Bundle comes. You have to bring a Pokemon, especially if Jolteon is coming. Booster speed makes it faster than the Jolteon, so that you could hit it with a Hydro Pump if it lands, obviously. But it's also got really good coverage. Doesn't want to. Nobody on the team wants to take. Oh, nobody on Dallas, I should say, wants to take either a Freeze Dry or a Hydro Pump. And obviously, you got to land those Hydro Pumps for them to be scary. But Cerule Edge, Landorus, Slowking, Jolteon, Greninja, none of them want to take it. Now, Fezandipity doesn't mind it, but they're still neutral and can hurt. I think to help with the speed a little bit, I think Colorado brings in the Gardevoir. Choice Scarf is really good this week. It's got really good coverage in Psychic and Fairy, but it also has Shadow Ball for Cerule Edge. I think it's really good. It can be scary, but also because it is a locked in, and there is obviously some options for Dallas to take some hits. Slowking can kind of take them no problem. If it's going to be a Psychic or a Moonblast, it can take that no problem. But yeah, it's a little tough. I think Decidueye comes, specifically the base form. I don't think Hisui and Decidueye comes, basically because the Ghost type is really good. It does a really good job of checking the Slowking. Plus, it's got good utility with Defog to get rid of any hazards, because Greninja can put down spikes as well. I think Fezandipity also gets Toxic Spikes, so those are things to worry about. The Decidueye can come in and get rid of. I'm stuck with the 6 though. The 6 Pokemon there's a lot of good options, right? Zapdos is really good. It looks good against everybody but Landorus and Jolteon, and Static can punish some like physical attackers like Cerule Edge, like U-turn Landorus, U-turn Fezandipity, and it can take a hit from Jolteon, right? As long as it's not a setup Jolteon, but it kind of gets walled. It doesn't have Defog. If it had Defog, it definitely would be here, but it can be good, but it can also be pretty exploitable, right? Like Greninja can take it out with an Ice Beam, especially after like a Battle Bond or Choice Specs for Protein. So those are all things to worry about. I think Scyther also a good option. Good speed, Technician boosted, Stab, Dual Wing Beat is basically free against this team provided they land. But you can do Wide Lens and then they'll hit. Little uncertain. I think it's a good if it was a Terra Captain to get rid of the potential rock weaknesses, that'd be even better, but it's tough. But and then also, you have Cinderace, who punishes if Roby doesn't go with a max speed and a Jolly or a timid Greninja. Cinderace is really good speed. It's got good power. Libero U-turns are really good. Even if with an Intimidate, it gets very good. So Colorado and Brazilian Fury can go around for a couple things with their 6 Pokemon. But hot take, this one might be the game of the week. Colorado matches up poorly this week, but they make up for it with experience over Dallas. And I almost always go with experience in any matchup. And that's why I think Colorado will take the win here 2-0. Up next, the surprise of the season in Orin and the British Bangers will take on the newly homed, the relocated Boston Bronze Dogs, now known as the Delaware Fighting Blazikens, and General Manager Hobb. This is a really interesting matchup on paper. Just before we look into it, you have Hobb, who finally gets to draft his own team, and Orin drafting a team of his own and not having, his support in his assistant coach, who is now general manager in the league as well. And I think this is a really good one. We get to see some how far Orin has come and how good Hobb can be. Hobb went 500 as general manager of the Boston Bronze Lords mid-season, arrival. As for British, really the question does though come down to Orin being able to soar without Kuhn. I think he does because he has Great Tusk. Great Tusk has an exploitable stabs with fighting and ground on Delaware. They're weak to both. And also hazard removal, which will be good, especially if like Sandy Shock or Tentacruel decide I'm going to get set. I'm going to get these hazards up. And I think Rabombi will help mainly because sticky webs, sticky webs, sticky webs. Also, good chip with like U-turn or Moonblast, which looks great against like the Baxcalibur or Sandy Shock. Really good stuff. I think Basculin also comes because adaptability Aqua Jets can really help with the Blaziken. Also, you get Head Smash for the Ice types. You get, liquidations, and wave crashes for the Sandy Shock. And I think Basculin is a really good bring here, especially, I would like to say, maybe even go for the white stripe and you rock the Eviolite to make it a little bit bulkier. I think Scizor comes. It's a defensive-minded Scizor, I think, comes this week. You know, it has really good typing to, you know, kind of wall a lot of what the Delaware has other than Blaziken, right? Like, and then you have priority to chip away. If that Blaziken, you just chip away. Need some of that, right? I think Terra, Ghost, Miss Magus also comes. It hits really hard against this team. There's no real good checks against Miss Magus, right? And you get some free, you can get a free switch in on a fighting type move for Blaziken or an Earthquake from potentially a setup Baxcalibur or Choice Banded Baxcalibur. I think Miss Magus is really good. I think the 6 Pokemon can go one of two ways. It can either go for more offense in Lycanroc Dusk. Choice Scarf is a great item to help break the walls, especially with Psychic Fang to break like Aurora Veil from Ninetales. But I could also see Rotom Wash being a bulky check. You know, it can take ice moves from Baxcalibur. It's Levitate, so it's not weak to ground type moves. It can just be a bulky Pokemon. Also can spread out Thunder Wave to like cut Blaziken in half, like its speed, not the actual Pokemon, or you know, do all the same with like Baxcalibur. I think Will-O-Wisp isn't great this week because Baxcalibur can't be burned, and Blaziken is a fire type, also can't be burned. Very tough call between those two for the final Pokemon for the British Bangers. I think Hob, though, I'm very interested to see how Hob he got to make his own team. It looks like a really good team. Starting off with Ninetales this week, I think. Snow gives Baxcalibur a defense boost. Also, Veil gives setup chances to multiple Pokemon, right? You can set up the Veil and you don't have to run Focus Sash on Blaziken. You can run, you don't have to run Heavy Duty Boots on Baxcalibur as much, right? Because you don't have to worry about taking the 25% chance or 25% damage to rocks and then taking like a 40%, you take a 30% move instead of like a 70% move, right? So those are some pretty good calls right there. Speaking of which, Blaziken comes, it's got late game sweeper potential written all over it, gets set up with, you know, speed boost. We allow it in the DSPL. Very threatening Pokemon. Plus, Baxcalibur, it can break walls with the huge power even without setting up, right? Just go Choice Band behind Veil, in the snow. You're going to be very scary, very hard to kill. I think Sandy Shock comes because it's got an advantage with its electric and ground typing, as British does have some weaknesses that can be exploited as a team. Also set up some hazards, be a really good Pokemon, really just a good special attacker. That's what this team at this point kind of needs with the 4. You know, Ninetales can special attack, but really is there to get Veil up and get the hell out of there. I think Tentacruel comes. Tentacruel is a great Swiss Army Pokemon. It can be a spinner this week with hazards and exploit the water weaknesses. We talked about Great Tusk and potentially Lycanroc Dusk. Those are Pokemon to be, you know, worried about. Also, it learns knockoff, so that is also a really good thing. I think one of the better utility Pokemon in the league potential for Tentacruel. And I think the last Pokemon for Delaware comes, it kind of, how do you not pick a bulky mythical Pokemon, right? Psychic, Steel type is really good. You don't have to worry too much about too much ground moves. Like, yes, Tusk is there, but unfortunately, Hob doesn't have a good, he has Oricorio, all 4 forms. That's his flying type. So Jirachi maybe with an air balloon can come in and get set up against some Great Tusk, or maybe you EV it to live an Earthquake. Either way, Jirachi can be very, very bulky this week for Delaware, who I do think takes this one 1-0. I think Oren did make some steps to progress as a trainer in a battler, but I think Hob has been there all along, and now finally with a team of his own, I think we get a close one. I think this one will be a 1-0 victory for the Delaware Fighting Blazikens. Halfway through our preview, just want to remind you, if you haven't already, just leave a like, leave a comment. I appreciate that. We'll be trying to get these out Fridays or Sunday, sometime the weekend before the, of the match. We're trying some new stuff out, so this is why this one's coming out on a Sunday. Our next matchup has Montana taking on the Aussie Illusion, the Montana Marowaks, formerly being the British, the Birmingham Bouffalints. I'm sorry. General Manager Corbin finally got to make his own team, and with a team he didn't make that was 0-4 when he took it over, he fell just short of the playoffs. Meanwhile, Marcus used a team that he drafted from start to finish, and he terrorized the league with Trick Room into the playoffs before running really into the major problem with Trick Room, which is being too slow outside of it. I really like the team that Montana drafted. I think the 6 for Montana this week are pretty good. I think you have Iron Valiant, the big kahuna, right? It's got a fighting type that kind of runs through Aussie a bit, right? It can just come in towards the end and just clean up vacuum waves for priority, close combats as well if speed is not a problem. Also, it quad resists Sucker Punch from King Gambit, so that is not a problem. Hisui and Gudra is a really, really good wall this week. It can wall the special threats and beat Trick Room setters, right? It can take on a Hatterene. It can take on a Bronzong. It can take on a Slowbro. It's fine with those. It's not a problem. It's going to be really good. Plus, you can run Shell Armor and you don't worry about a crit, all that good stuff. I think Vikavolt comes in as well for Montana. It takes advantage of the electric weaknesses on Aussie, and it also walls Hisui and Electrode. Also, it's slow, so it's a good Terra Room option as well. If it gets set up in a way, right? I think Quagsire comes in. Very hard not to bring Quagsire, as its Unaware beats a Glastrier, right? You could have that be +3 attack Glastrier. It doesn't care. Quagsire Unaware beats that. And Galarian Wheezing is interesting because it walls the physical threats of Aussie. It can run Levitate as well to really wall Ursaluna. Plus, it can get Toxic Spikes up and really do a good job of spreading out some chip damage passively. As far as the 6 Pokemon, I think Suicune comes for Montana. I just think having a water type potentially against Rain. That's right, Aussie has a rain room now. But I think having a bulky water type will be really good. Obviously, don't want to go up against electric moves like Hisui and Electrode. But even then, it has the bulk and really just a really good Pokemon. With Aussie, Marcus, and the Aussie Illusion, you gotta wonder, the upgrades to the Trick Room, can they be the difference starting in week 1, right? You have King Gambit, bring him, right? Because he's the big kahuna. And he takes advantage of those dark weaknesses, right? Like yes, Wheezing resists it. Yes, Iron Valiant does it. But other than that, Kowtow, Cleave, and Sucker Punch is ridiculously strong. And it can also clean up. It's very similar to Iron Valiant. It has priority. It has very strong attacks. It's able to play around some of the, counters a bit, right? Iron Head against Iron Valiant kills it, right? Very good Pokemon. I think Hatterene comes, right, because it's the best Trick Room setter in the league. It prevents hazards. It prevents taunts, right? You can run a Focus Sash. It's bulky-ish. Obviously it's not on the physical side, but special attack, special defense is a little bit better. Hatterene's really good. And I think you bring Ursaluna, right? You don't draft Ursaluna and not have that Pokemon be a wall breaker with its pure power. It's really good. Obviously, Wheezing is a problem potentially. Vikavolt is a problem. Quagsire Guts does not get ignored by Unaware, so that'll be good. And I think you bring Glastrier. It had 15 kills in 5 games. You don't bring that kind of. You don't not bring that kind of power. It can snowball into a problem. It is bulky, especially if it's able to get a substitute off for free. Get off 2 hits before, or get off a hit, for a much smaller one. But here's where the interesting thing is. I think Aussie brings, with that's 4, right? So there's 6 more Pokemon. I think they bring Walking Wake. They drafted Walking Wake in the second round for a reason. It's got good coverage this week as well, and it attacks the weaker special defense of Montana, right? Gudra doesn't want to take a flamethrower. Vikavolt doesn't want to take a flamethrower. Wheezing doesn't want to take a special move. Iron Valiant doesn't want to take a special move. So Walking Wake, especially with the booster energy, can be really dangerous. But for the 6, I think it comes down to one of 2 things. I either think you go and have more speed and you get the Hisui and Electrode, especially if you're concerned about the problems of Iron Valiant with like a choice specs, or going not going for a booster energy, but going for a booster special attack. Electrode can kind of outspeed and chip away, and it also has good momentum, and it can hit the Quagsire very hard for some grass types. Or Pelipper comes and can set up the rain, which does help a little bit with any potential fire coverage, like a flamethrower from Weezing against King Gambit and Glastrier, like that's not going to be a problem. I think one of those two Pokemon, so either Pelipper comes setting up the rain, helping Walking Wake, because then you can free up Walking Wake a little bit. It still gets a boost to the steam eruptions, right? It does hit its flamethrower a little, for a little bit, but you don't have to run. You can run booster energy, right? And you don't have to worry about knockoff potentially doing a lot more damage. I think this matchup, though, is a very interesting one. We could have seen this one in the playoffs last year, but not this one with the teams, right? With the general managers as well. I think it comes down to Aussie Marcus loves the Trick Room, and I think Trick Room this week isn't exactly the best option. I think Montana will come away with the win here. I think Cordman gets a Season 1 victory, or Week 1 victory in Season 2, starting the season fully from Week 1, and I think Montana wins 2-0. Our next matchup, we have two general managers stepping out on their own as Pro Scream leaves the Pig's Eye Pig Knight for his own team in the Edina Sting, and Kuhn moves on from the Bangers to make some noise in the Indianapolis Ignition. The Edina Sting, it's Edina, I'm going to say Edina sometimes, it's Edina. They had an odd draft, but it is filled with power. You have Garchomp, who is a great hazard setter with no removal, really. Like it punishes the fact that Indy doesn't have any removal, and it also punishes physical attackers with like a Rocky Helmet, Rough Skin. You get the double chip for hitting them. Really good stuff. Also, you make it bulky and it's good. I think you bring the Entei because it exploits fire weakness, and it can't be burned either, which is really good. When you look at some of the Pokemon on Indy that can spread some Will-O-Wisp, Entei looks really good this week. It's very strong and hits very hard with its, like a Sacred Fire is really, really good. I think the Cloyster also comes, right? Because you got to look at this Pokemon and you look, hey, all right, it can resist Ice type, it can resist Water type, it's physical, and against Pokemon like Gliscor, that'll be really good. Gliscor kind of gives Cloyster a setup potential. You can run like a Lumberry on a Toxic. Or you think there's a Protect on like an Ice Shard or something like that. Cloyster can take advantage of that with some Shell Smashes. I think Iron Jugulis comes because there's a very weak point in this Indy team, and it is Flying type. There's no resist, and it can just really, really hit things hard, right? Hurricane does a lot of damage. Obviously, you have to, hit that, but you can hit a rain, have somebody set up a rain dance, potentially Goldengo, who I think comes as well. You can set up a rain dance, weakening the fire weakness there. Also, just really good. It hits things. It's got good coverage. Steel Ghost is great coverage. Obviously, cannot be, statused either. Can't be taunted. And if you really want to mess with like a Gliscor, you can trick on turn 1 against it. And get rid of it, or if you think it's coming in on a switch in, you can trick if you're running a Choice Scarf or Choice Specs. I think Choice Scarf's the option there. And then lastly, I think Indeedee comes. I think either one of the Indeedees, probably the female because it's a little bit bulkier. Terrain support is very important this week with Weavile. Weavile's Ice Shard looks very good, and it can really do some serious damage, especially against like Garchomp and Iron Jugulis. But I think that'll be good. Plus, you get the female Indeedee. It's a little bit bulkier. The terrain helps support its psychic moves, which other than Weavile, there's not a lot of Pokemon that can help against psychic types. And that's a little bit of a problem for Indy. But even Indy somehow had an odder draft, but they filled it with more power. They took Gliscor and Primarina in the first round. But look, Gliscor is great. It can hazard stack. It gets Poison Heal. It can be a very bulky Pokemon who can hang around for a long time. U-turn for momentum. It can be really good. Got to bring it. If you're going to draft it first round, number 2, you'd take it you got to bring it. I think Weavile is a great bring, especially with Iron Jugulis and Garchomp on the other side. Also, I think just in general, it takes advantage of the dark weakness. Like, it can hit the Goldengo for dark type moves, and the Ice Dark combo is a very good one. Also, fastest Pokemon in the matchup. And look, if you're going to take this Pokemon in the second round, you got to bring him. Terra Captain of the Year potential, by the way, in Primarina. Very good Pokemon, very good coverage this week. Fairy Water, very good, very good. I don't know what else to say there. Wismicott brings in good stab coverage with Grass and Fairy. Also, Prankster support, so it can get some taunts, encores. It can endure. It can substitute, to kind of instead of, maybe take advantage of potential setups and whatnot like that. All good stuff. I think Blood Moon Ursuluna is also good. It's a good bulk to check Entei, and it punishes bringing Goldengo as well because it doesn't care that it's a ghost type and it can just hit. And I think lastly, the 6th Pokemon for Indy is going to be Thunderous T, a big special attacker who again adds some momentum. Right, you have some flip turns, you have some U-turns, you have Volt Switch, a lot of good momentum there. We saw how good Kuhn helped Orin be, and very, very interested in seeing how Kuhn does as his own general manager. Pro Scream did a good job in Pig's Eye, but I think that the difference of team power, team matchup, also general manager experience is in favor of Indy, and I think Indy wins this one 4-0. Up next, the Long Island Ducklets and their new general manager, Harold Pestard, whose official debut will happen, take on the new general manager Ash in the Twin City Thick Boys. Long Island has championship expectations, while Twin City just expects to compete. And looking at Long Island's roster, it is one of the better rosters drafted. Dragapult, Ghost Weaknesses is just a really big thing for Twin City. Also, it's top speed, it's a spin blocker, it's arguably the best draft Pokemon to be made. Gotta bring it. I think Electivire comes to kind of exploit the electric weakness and be a physical attacker against Twin City. Twin City has a really good bulk, and Electivire can do a really good chunk of damage. I think Heatran also comes. It can be a physical wall this week to punish, Samurott going for Hisuian Samurott going for Ceaseless Edge, Rillaboom, Iron Boulder, any of those. Maybe you want to run a Chople Berry, but it could also set up rocks as well. That could be help. Clefable can really punish the Samurott because it can just come in and get off a Moonblast, which there's not really a good resist. I mean, Toxapex is there, but maybe run Magic Guard, so what? You poison me. You toxic me. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that's really good. I also think Hitmonchan really comes. Hisuian Samurott is a very good Pokemon in this matchup. Its Dark type is really good. Its Water type is also very good. And I think Hitmonchan also being a spinner is really good because depending on the 6th Pokemon, it might be very important that it can be a spinner. Because the potential, you go with Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz can be your hazard remover with Defog, spread out some statuses, and it also gets Stab Foul Play, which is very good. It also gets U-turn for momentum, which is very good. But I think Harold Pestard, not general manager genre, but Harold Pestard it would be interested in stacking some hazards with Overqwil. Plus, it's an Intimidator, so you can come in, get a flip turn off, and get an Intimidate, lower some attack, and it's very, be a faster one. Or either way, either role, it could do both even. But hazard stack very good for against the Twin City Thick Boys because they don't really have a very good remover, right? And looking at Twin City, the Thick Boys is right. They're the second highest team average HP in the league. Iron Boulder, Booster Energy can outspeed a Dragapult, and Rock goes really good against this. It's got one of the better rock moves and Mighty Cleave. It's 100% accurate, 95 base power, does really good. It hits everybody on that team except like a Hitmonchan for neutral damage at the very least, right? Samurott, really good stacking hazards. Ceaseless Edge. Also, it can take on the Heatran perfectly fine with either like a Razor Shell or Aqua Cutter and be really good. Obviously, you have to be aware of any Flame Body type shenanigans. I think Rillaboom comes. Really good Pokemon. Terrain support, grassy terrain will help with the passive damage. Plus, Earthquake coverage for like Iron Boulder and Infernape will be very important. Also, it can check the Electivire. I mean, obviously, Electivire could run like an Ice Punch, and that is scary, but for the most part, it can be a bulky check to Electivire. Also has momentum. Infernape is just a wall breaker. Throw on a Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, either one. You go for Mix, Choice Band. Infernape can just hit things very hard. It does get knockoff. It's got good coverage. Fighting Fire does really well against Long Island this week. Toxapex comes. I think you need a wall of some kind. And like Twin City's got a lot of bulk, and I think Pex is the right bulk to bring this week. And the last Pokemon being Archaludon, who is the best electric check on Twin City. Just also, it's immune to toxic spikes, immune to toxic, and can hit really hard. It does do a good job against the Heat Train. It does a good job against the Electivire. Does a good job against the Overquill. Problem is, Dragapult can kind of hit it a little bit. But I think that really what it comes down to the fact that Dragapult's on Long Island. I think that that's going to be the difference, because as long as Harold Pestered, he has had a lot of time, watching film, and I'm not going to say he is General Manager Johnner, but he's very similar to General Manager Johnner, and I think that kind of thought process, is going to help him. I think Long Island wins 2-0. And our premium matchup, the North Star War Volume 2, will be our final match, our first premium match of the season, as the new look Minnesota Lycanrocs will travel to the Pig's Eye Pig Night, who have a new look of their own. All this new looking to give some hope to the fans. For Pig's Eye, no more ghosts, and the only scary thing is the fact that the owner, former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, demands playoffs this season. He has told me this. He has said this to me. He said, or else, and I don't know what or else means. I think Glamora comes, the experience with Glamora really helps. General Manager Didac, good hazard pressure. Also, rock weakness is very good against Minnesota this week. I think Komodo comes, it exploits a weak point in Dragon types, right? It's a little slower, takes a little bit to get set up, but even if you just run Choice Scarf Outrage, you'll be okay as long as Azumarill is a little bit taken care of. But I just really like Komodo for the Dragon type this week. Fighting type's not bad either. Cresselia is a bulky wall that I expect to come. It exploits some weak areas in Minnesota, especially psychic areas, and can run some Trick Room to really do a good job of making Minnesota regret setting in the sun. You're going to need a Trick Room taker, to take advantage of, right? I think Enamor's Tea does a really good job of that. Even outside of Trick Room, it walls Roaring Moon. It does a really good job of threatening Roaring Moon. It can take an Iron Head and land back a Draining Kiss for a KO that takes back most of the damage done. I think another Trick Room attacker has potential is Garganical, who's a physical wall that can sit in front of some of these Pokemon, take some hits, chip away, and recover. It also exploits a rock weakness, so there's some good matchup there. It's just tough to figure out who's the sixth Pokemon going to be for the Pig Eye. Do you go Emboar, the near kind of the mascot of the team, who is a good wall breaker, by the way. Reckless, Choice Scarf, Flare Blitz, Head Smash, Double Edge, all go pretty well. Or do you go with Raikou, who's a really good Azumarill check and has momentum in Volt Switch? Not a lot of that on this team, which might be a problem. Either way, Minnesota is going to bring the sun, and it's going to be blazing hot in Minnesota, which is a cause for concern among the locals, because you do have Torkoal, who will set the sun for the proto attackers, and it does also can set up hazards, can remove hazards, can spread out some status, can do a little bit of that, a little bit of stuff. Potential support Pokemon of the year in Torkoal, especially Pokemon like Roaring Moon, who is the fastest Pokemon without proto, boost, so it can run proto attack instead of proto speed. Raging Bolt is another proto attacker who's bulky, right? You don't care about speed there. Special attack goes insane. There's no ground resist. There's no ground Pokemon, which is a problem. I think Azumarill also comes. It's not a proto Pokemon, but it does wall Komodo and Emboar, which is very good. I think like a thick, fat, Assault Vest Azumarill, very good. I think Corviknight comes to defog to get rid of any Glamora hazards, and also has U-turn for momentum. By the way, Raging Bolt, Roaring Moon also get momentum. Roaring Moon gets the U-turn, Raging Bolts get Volt Switch, and another momentum Pokemon in Slitherwing making their DSPL debut. I talked about low kicks having very strong first impressions in the sun or out of the sun. Choice Band Slitherwing with first impression goes very hard. It very much hurts. It's all concerning if you're a Pig's Eye Pig Night fan. But I think this matchup is a very interesting one because Bask showed promise at times in Season 1, as did Didact. And I think both these general managers are hoping to have the success more often than not. My faith is in Bask. I'm rooting for Bask and the Minnesota Lichen Rocks, but I think having Sun might be the downside of this because the Pig's Eye do have two of the better rock Pokemon in the league, in Glamora and Garganacl. I think Pig's Eye will win this one 1-0 in a very exciting premium matchup that will take us to the end of week 1. So there are my predictions. There are my previews. There's what I think it happens. The only way you can find out who does or who doesn't come, and what if I was right, with my predictions, the projections, or was I right with the predictions? All that, only way you find out, come by the stream Sunday, January 28th, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be hanging out. We'll be doing this at also just a small plug. It's my birthday that day, so come by, hang out. If this goes up on Sunday, awesome. Come by today, wish me happy birthday, or say happy birthday in the comments below. Happy birthday, Commish, below. That also works. Either way, thank you guys. I am Grumm, and I will see you all for the games on Sunday, and if not, I'll see you next week for another edition of DSPL Weekly here on the channel. Later.
Grumm TV thanks you for watching this presentation of the Dorkside Pokemon League.